Welcome to this new video from French for All. We're already at lesson 2 in this journey of learning French for beginners. I hope you've had a chance to go through the first video, lesson 1, and do the homework. I had also invited you to look up a couple of adjectives just to be able to make more and more sentences in French. So a quick reminder from what we discussed in lesson 1 is we saw the structure of a short sentence in French, how we can add a subject, a verb, and an adjective. We looked at the verb être. We also had a quick look at the subject on, which we're going to discuss more today. We did have a quick look at the agreement of the adjective, how it varies from a subject, a masculine subject, to a feminine subject. And also I had invited you to look up more professions, nationalities, and adjectives to be able to make more and more French sentences. But today is all about a whole bunch of adjectives. We're going to see how we can make the adjectives and how they agree with the subject in the sentence, which is the main thing we're going to discuss today. We're also going to take a look at the subjects on and vous, because there's a couple of details we really need to highlight here about them. And as usual, we're going to make a whole bunch of phrases and sentences with them to be able to really master the subject that we're learning during the lesson. Let's jump in and go straight to the adjectives. As you might have noticed so far, the adjectives in French, they agree when it comes to number and gender. As an example, this simple sentence when we say je suis étudiant, meaning I'm a student, when I want to say it in a plural form, I'm going to add that S, that red S. So, nous sommes étudiants or nous sommes étudiants. Here you see the meaning of this sentence is we are students. So the moment the subject turns from I to we, so it takes a plural form, étudiant, which is the adjective of the phrase, also has an S on top of it, meaning it's agreeing with the subject, which is we or nous here. Same thing happens for gender. Take a look at this. Il est étudiant. He's a student. What if I want to say she? Elle est étudiante. So I add the E and I pronounce it a bit differently. Unlike the sentence on top where I had added the S, but no difference in the pronunciation, in this sentence when I add the E, the pronunciation was also different. Il est étudiant, but elle est étudiante. This is something that we saw in lesson 1 in the sentences that we made. So now we're going to get deep into it and see why and how we can agree them. As we've noticed so far, yes, in French, we have masculine and feminine. So here we're discussing and we're talking all about adjectives, but it's the same thing with nouns as well. We'll get there later on during the journey of learning French. But let's keep it here to the adjectives. So we have masculine and feminine types of adjectives. And the way that we form these adjectives is different. So you might ask yourself, okay, how am I going to agree the adjective with the related subject in a sentence? Here comes the answer. When we have a masculine form and we want to change it to the feminine form of the same adjective, in most cases, we add a E at the end, just like étudiant and étudiante that you just saw. So let's see a whole bunch of examples that follow the same rule. So the masculine you see it in the column on the left hand. And we're going to have the feminine, which will be the same plus at the end on the right hand side. Now I'm going to pronounce masculine and feminine of each adjective. Pay attention to this and repeat after me to get the pronunciation right. Étudiant, étudiante, student. Français, française, French. Américain, américaine, American. Blond, blonde, blonde. Grand, grande, tall. Prêt, prête, ready. Marié, marié, married. But it's not the case of all of the adjectives. Some of them have IER at the end. For those types of adjectives, to make the feminine form of it, we need to add an accent grave and an E at the end. So it's the two forms that you see on top of the slide. Let's get into more examples for this type of adjectives. So you see the ones at the left-hand side, the masculine ones, and the feminine form of it on the right-hand side of the screen. I am going to pronounce each of them. Policier, a policeman. Policière, which is a woman. Cuisinier, cuisinière, a cook. Infirmier, infirmière, nurse. So you see how the pronunciation is different in both forms here. Let's jump to another type of adjective. So some of them end in E-E-N. For those, to make it feminine, we add another N and an E at the end, which will change the pronunciation as well. Look at these adjectives and the feminine of them. So we're going to pronounce each of them from top to bottom. Italien, italienne, Italian. Iranien, iranienne, Iranian. Canadien, canadienne, Canadian. Chirurgien, chirurgienne, surgeon. Pharmacien, pharmacienne, pharmacist. And other adjectives end in a T-E-U-R. For those, in the feminine form, we make it T-R-I-C-E. Take a look at the examples. Acteur, actrice, actor. Compositeur, compositrice, composer. Traducteur, traductrice, translator. And some adjectives are identical in the masculine and feminine form of them. Example, médecin, a physician, which is the same in feminine. Jeune, young. Célibataire, single. Calme, calm. So these types do not change. And we have irregular ones as well. Some of them do not really follow a rule that we can give, such as these adjectives. So you see both forms. We're going to pronounce each of them and say the meaning in English. So from top to bottom, masculine to feminine. Beau, belle, beautiful. Gros, grosse, big. Gentil, gentille, kind. Vieux, vieille, old. blanc, blanche, white. As you see, most of them have a different writing and a different pronunciation, except for gentil has the same pronunciation. If you're enjoying the video so far, hit that like button and we're going to continue together. So let's see in a sentence when we want to really apply these agreements of the adjective and the subject, what would the sentence look like? We're going to take the example of the adjective blonde. So we have the masculine form of it and the feminine form of it that you see on the screen. And we're going to apply it to all the subjects. Let's see how it's going to look like with the verb être. So when I say je suis with the adjective blanc, if I'm a woman, I say je suis blonde. If I'm a man, I say je suis blond. For you, depending on if you're a woman or a man, tu es blond, tu es blonde. Il est blond. Obviously, he is, it's only one possibility. Il est blond. Elle est blonde. She is blonde. And as we said, on est, on is said like il and elle, but the meaning is us, which we will take a deeper look into a bit further in this same video. So, on est, we could have the 4 forms. We will discuss this later on, but I'm going to pronounce it here. On est blond, on est blonde, on est blanc, on est blonde. And the plural parts would be nous sommes blonds or nous sommes blondes, depending on if it's a group of only women or a mix. Vous êtes blond, blonde, blond, ou blonde. Yes, the 4 types are possible. As we have discussed in lesson 1, vous could have a meaning for singular or plural, which we will discuss further in this same video again. Ils sont blonds, they are blonde, and elles sont blondes. So obviously we only have one form for each of these 2 plural forms. And as I had promised, yes, we're going to take a look at on and vous here just to clarify a couple of details. So, as we said, on really means nous. So, the both of them actually mean us. But what's the difference and how do I apply them? I can say nous sommes fatigués, we're tired. And in the same circumstances, I could say on est fatigué, we're tired. It's the same, I will tell you, in the spoken French, spoken language, we use mostly on and not nous, but both of them are really used. But if I say Pierre et moi sommes fatigués, the difference between this sentence and the one above is I am specifying exactly who is nous. It's Pierre et moi. So in this case, when I go on est fatigué, I am going to add the S. So this is only a small little detail when we're writing and we know exactly who the on is, we are gonna agree the adjective with the subject. If not, as the one on top you see, on est fatigué, there is no agreement there. And speaking of tu and vous, if you do remember, lesson 1, we did say that tu is you, singular, only one person, and vous could be different. So tu, let's say I'm speaking to this woman, I can call her tu, depending on the relationship I have with her. If it's not a formal relationship, if I know the person, it's definitely tu. If I want to be a bit, let's say, polite or in a formal conversation, that single woman or man, that single person could be a vous as well. So if it's by respect, if it's by, I don't know, being formal, not knowing the person, a single person could also be vous. But also, when we say vous, we could mean plural. So more than one people. It doesn't matter if they're women or men. So let's take an example of the adjective prêt and prête, which means ready. If I want to apply it to the different types of vous, let's see what it would look like. Vous êtes prêts, messieurs? Pay attention to the sentence here. So when we say vous êtes prêts, you see prêt is with an S, and messieurs. Messieurs is like Mr., but in the plural form. So you see the S at the end of monsieur. You also see the S with prêt. It's masculine plural. But then if I'm speaking to one man, monsieur, I say vous êtes prêt. The pronunciation is exactly the same. I'm just not adding the S at the end of prêt. So I don't have that agreement here. This is masculine singular. Vous êtes prête, madame, when I'm talking to a woman. I say, vous êtes prête, madame. Here I'm speaking to one person, but I'm calling her vous. Féminin singulier. Here, this is out of respect, or as we said, is probably a formal conversation. Or if I'm speaking to more than one woman, I have mesdames, which means woman. Vous êtes prêtes, mesdames? Are you ready? And I'm speaking to the woman in front of me. So, féminin pluriel here. Let's jump to the sentences. All we learned today, we are going to really apply them in the sentences and see in real life how can we actually use what we've learned. Say these two are the subjects. They could be speaking for themselves and say, on est contente. Pay attention, we have on, so it's like us or we. They're speaking for themselves, it's okay. On est contente. Both of them are women, so we have the e at the end, which makes it feminine, and we have the s because it's plural. Or I can speak for them and I say, elles sont contentes. So they are happy or content. Here again, we have the e and the s because we're speaking about two women. Or vous êtes contente. Again, I am speaking to them. So as I'm saying, you are happy or content. If I change the subject, here I have a man with two children, so the gender is masculine plus feminine. We say, on est content. So here it's the plural form would take a masculine form, only the S. Ils sont contents. I'm speaking about them. They are content. Or I'm asking them the question, vous êtes content? Again, the same thing. Content only has an S. Let's take a look at her. So she is Wendy. Let's see what she is saying about herself. Je suis grande et intelligente. I'm tall and smart. So, grande, it has an E. Intelligente has an E, which are the feminine forms of it. Now, I am speaking about her. Elle s'appelle Wendy. Her name is Wendy. Elle est chanteuse et très belle. She's a singer and she is very beautiful. Wendy, tu es belle. So I can speak to her, imagining that I know the person and it's not a formal conversation. I say, Wendy, you're beautiful. So here, you, I have used tu and not vous. Or if I do not know Wendy as much, I can say, Wendy, vous êtes belle. So both of them are correct. Wendy, tu es belle. Wendy, vous êtes belle. Let's see who he is and what he would be saying. Bonjour, je m'appelle André et je suis étudiant. Hi, my name is André and I'm a student. André est petit et il est canadien. So I'm speaking about André. He is short and he's Canadian. So petit is the masculine form and Canadian as well. Tu es très intelligent, André. You are very smart, André. Usually when you speak to children, it's usually tu. And let's get to the good part, which is the homework. So what I suggest for you to doing, just to make sure you really apply what you've learned today, is that you take these different adjectives, which were mentioned, all of them were mentioned during the video. So, both, some of them have both forms, masculine and feminine. Médecin does not. And we have the different subjects, which you know by now. So the point here is to make sentences with each subject and using the right adjective. So if you want to say, I'm beautiful, you say, je suis. If you're a man, you say beau, and je suis belle if you are a woman. Make the phrases, these sentences accordingly, and that's how we can really practice our French. If you've enjoyed the lesson, hit the like button right now if you have not already. Thank you for watching this video. The next video is going to be about how we can make negative sentences and how we could ask questions in French. Stay tuned and make sure to subscribe to the channel not to miss the other videos. And also,